Right, hello. So now we're on to the next expert from Lively. So Wayfarer are seeking to exclude the testimony of Richard Marx. Now, I'm sure some of you may say, do you know what, Leanne, that name's familiar, right? And I thought that myself. And for good basis, actually, you would be right. This guy, Richard Marx, has previously testified in another huge federal case. So, I'm going to show you. This is where you might recognize him. He testified on behalf of Johnny Depp as to the harm to Depp's reputation resulting from Amber Heard's op-ed in Washington Post. And now, Lively has retained him as her expert. Now, I will say this, I liked him in the Depp case. I thought he did really well. So, whilst we have to remember, right, I'll laugh, I'll scoff, and I'll be like, oh my God, this sounds like a disaster. This is also just one side. I haven't seen this guy's report. With some of the other experts like Michael Robbins and Jennifer Freyd, I have seen their reports and they were so unimpressive. And Wayfarer just confirmed everything, so. But there are reports. I want to see the reports. Additionally, we also have to remember that Lively does get a right reply here. So she's going to come back and, she'll be like, well, no, that's not right. And that's not right. And no, everything's admissible because. So we've all that yet to see. But I did like Richard Marx in the Depp Heard trial. He did a great job for Johnny Depp. So I do want to see what his report says for Blake Lively. But for now, we are going to read Wayfarer's Dalbert motion on him. Okay, I just dropped something, but I don't know what. Okay, the court should exclude the testimony of Richard Marx. The opinion of plaintiff Blake Lively's expert Richard Marx should be excluded because it fails to meet the admissibility requirements mandated by Federal Rule of Evidence 702. Marx's conclusions are not based on sufficient facts and data to support his analysis, but rely on wild hypothetical assumptions and pure speculation. Although redacted, Marx's opinions are based solely on his experience in the entertainment industry as a transactional attorney. Marx's opinions rely on unsupported assumptions regarding her career trajectory, untethered to her work history as either an actress or endorser. Marx invents likely offers for Lively that are inherently speculative, highlighted by the fact that his calculations of lost earnings ranges from redacted. Okay, so that information is redacted. A redacted margin of error for Marx's range of lost opportunities demonstrates just how speculative Marx's opinions are. Thus, Marx's opinions do not meet the standards of admissibility for expert testimony pursuant to Federal Rules of Evidence 702 and 403 and should be excluded. And just to manage everyone's expectations, they're saying this about all the experts, as Lively will be doing for Wayfarer. It will be incredibly unlikely that Lyman will agree that all the experts need to be excluded. So some of these are going to be allowed to testify. Marx's opinions. Marx opines that but for defendant's conduct, redacted. At his deposition, Marx clarified that in his opinion, redacted. Marx identifies the following hypothetical deals Lively would have been offered between August 2024 and August 2029. And they're all redacted. I just got to point out the irony here as well of all of the sort of mudslinging and bitchiness from Lively that, Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer have used Johnny Depp's former crisis management, like in the form of Melissa Nathan. And here they are using Johnny Depp's, former expert witness. As a basis for future compensation, Marx only reviewed redacted, according to Marx, redacted. Subsequent to a simple favor, redacted. It's not all redacted, by the way. I want to make that clear. There is stuff in here worth reading. I haven't read it in detail, but I've skimmed through to see how many pages there are to go through. In 2023, redacted. Before it ends with us, redacted. Marx opines that redacted. Marx does not identify any specific opportunity that was lost, but rather bases his opinion on hypothetical future projects. Redacted. In other words, Marx's opinion assumes Lively will earn no income whatsoever prior to August 2029 due to the defendant's conduct, which is just fucking ridiculous. Marx's opinion is not based on sufficient facts or data, and his methodology consists of pure speculation. Where a damages analysis relies almost exclusively on speculation as to future events, it is inadmissible. Specifically, where lost future earnings are at issue, an expert's testimony should be excluded as speculative if it is based on unrealistic assumptions regarding the plaintiff's future employment prospects. Expert testimony as to lost earnings that is not grounded in a sufficient factual foundation should be excluded. Prediction of earnings in the entertainment industry is particularly uncertain. Exactly. You're not guaranteed of anything. Marx's opinion of lost earnings from acting should be excluded. Marx bases his opinion on the value of Lively's lost earnings on 4 films starring Lively between 2017 and 2024, which are redacted. Okay. In fact, Wayfarer owns the rights to derivative work and redacted. Most importantly, no sequel or prequel has been developed, an obvious predicate to Lively being offered a role in the film. Remembers redacted. Okay, that seems to carry on. Something's redacted, contingent compensation, which would only occur if the sequel/prequel resulted in blockbuster success. The performance of any potential prequel or sequel is highly speculative and not within Marx's expertise. Lively has starred in her share of flops. For example, the rhythm section. And her inclusion in a sequel in no way guarantees massive success at the box office, leading to guarantee of redacted. Marx's opinion is also based on his assumption that redacted. Okay, well, here's some stuff, finally. Under Sakaro, Boucher, and Dixon, Marx's opinion should be excluded. Marx's conclusions are purely speculatory and not based on Lively's employment history. Marx's opinions also rely on unrealistic assumptions, including the assumptions that Lively would be available for this range of projects, and that Lively would not earn any money at all through 2029, but for defendant's conduct. In Boucher, the court excluded plaintiff's damages expert who calculated lost earnings based on the assumption that the plaintiff would work full-time for the rest of his career, despite the fact that he had worked sporadically prior to the defendant's alleged conduct. The court noted the expert's projection thus was based on assumptions about plaintiff's employment prospects that represent a complete break with his work history of seasonal and intermittent employment. The court also noted that although the plaintiff had been engaged in full-time employment just prior to the defendant's alleged conduct and had been making more money than before, this does not support an assumption that his employment prospects had undergone any fundamental change, and it certainly cannot support an inference that at the time he was injured, plaintiff was on the verge of a 24-year career of clock punching. Similarly, in Dixon, the court excluded plaintiff's damages expert opining on future lost earnings as too speculative. The expert opined that the music industry executive plaintiff would have earned somewhere between millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, but for the defendant's alleged conduct, untethered to any factual basis. Moreover, the expert assumed that the plaintiff would not only remain successful, but would rise to reach the pinnacle of the profession. The court found the hypothetical career trajectory lacked sufficient evidentiary foundation and thus cannot form the basis of an expert opinion. The court further noted that the expert's conclusion that plaintiff's lost earnings could range anywhere from 7 to 9 figures annually highlights the inherently speculative nature of his opinion. Lively's employment history shows she works sporadically, often declining roles. How that text message has come to bite her in the ass. Often declining roles and work which would conflict with her husband Ryan Reynolds' schedule, accepting only 4 acting roles since 2017. Wow. There's a bunch redacted there. Marx did not interview Lively, simply relying on his review of documents and confirmation of his astronomical earnings opinion by people with a financial interest in Lively's professional success. Nor does Marx's opinion conform to Lively's most recent employment. The highest compensation ever received by Lively was redacted for another simple favour. Marx has no basis to conclude that she would receive redacted for a single future project. Nor does he have a basis to assume she would command a redacted when her past history shows she received redacted at most. Oh, well, Lively's not going to like reading that, is she? They're still smearing me. Marx's wild speculation that Lively would have earned between redacted and redacted, but for defendant's conduct, has no basis in fact and fails to account for any income she is likely to earn prior to August 2029. Moreover, Marx's exceedingly broad range of potential earnings between redacted and redacted highlights the inherently speculative nature of his opinion. Marx's opinion of lost earnings from endorsements should be excluded. Marx does not claim to be an expert in endorsement contracts, yet opines Lively would likely receive endorsement offers over the next 5 years worth up to redacted. Marx bases his opinion on his understanding that between 2008 and 2023, redacted. Of the 7 previous endorsement deals identified by Marx, the average value is redacted. The second and third highest value deals were redacted and redacted. The total value of all 7 prior endorsement deals is less than redacted. Marx also failed to consider exclusivity clauses that might restrict Lively's availability for other endorsements. For instance, redacted. In fact, redacted. Marx is not an expert in endorsement deals. His opinion lacks any basis in fact and relies purely on speculation and conjecture. The opinion should be excluded. For the foregoing reasons, Marx's opinions should be excluded in their entirety. Okay, so, I mean, there wasn't much I could really glean from that because so much of it was redacted because it's Lively's, it goes down to Lively's net worth, etc., etc. And she's obviously seeking to keep that out. But it's going to have to come in to a point, I think, because if you're claiming that your reputation has been damaged and it's cost you jobs, you can't really not divulge how. Like, what were you earning before? What endorsement deals did you have before? What were they worth? How many have you had? And unfortunately, that text message from Ryan Reynolds as well to Justin Baldoni saying, literally admitting that she declined jobs and, they only work when it fits around him, basically. That is going to be a problem. And I don't say this to be kind of discriminatory. No one should ever be discriminated on the basis that they've had a baby or they're pregnant. But when you're acting, it's not impossible, but Lively obviously chose not to work as much. Other people like Gal Gadot, they carried on working during their pregnancy. The pregnancy was either, it was hidden one way or another, or it was, CGI touched it up and just removed the bump, basically. There are things that can be done. So, but Lively has made a choice that when she's pregnant, which has been quite a lot, in quick succession, she has not worked during that time. So, and clearly some of the reason for that is she's quite obviously, got issues with her appearance and her body. She's got self-esteem and body issues. Okay, that's fine. That's absolutely normal. And, she's one of many, many, many women who feel like that. I'm not criticizing her at all for that. But then that becomes a personal choice. And that is not Wayfarer's fault. Nor should they have to, pay to make up that shortfall. These have been choices by Lively. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm interested because, like I say, I did like this guy when he was an expert for Johnny Depp, and he did a very good job. The thing is he can only work with the information he's been given, the objectives of the client. So, and he's obviously here. He's been retained. He's been paid by Lively, so he's got to, try and take the information that's available and make it fit that in a way that is positive to her, that is going to help her case. And I think the guy is basically been tasked with the impossible. That, like the argument that the hair care brand Blake Brown Beauty only launched literally a couple of days before the alleged smear campaign. So there is no history to judge it on. So how can you judge future, lost profits and future lost profits on a product that is brand new and has no history? You got no indicators of past performance. You can't see a clear point in time where that performance, went down on a downward trajectory. And the same is true here. Like, Lively has not been in a lot of films, like, in the grand scheme of, like, if you look at prolific, like when this guy had to do Johnny Depp's expert testimony, Johnny Depp did film after film after film after film. So there was a huge amount to work with, whereas here there just isn't with Lively. There are gaps. So she's had huge flops. It Ends With Us was her biggest movie. And Another Simple Favor, by the sounds of it, was, she got paid more in Another Simple Favor, likely because of her increased stardom. And let's not forget now, she does have the PGA as well. So she's actually, if anything, more employable on that sense. Has she shot her reputation because, she's made serious allegations from what could be at worst miscommunications, misunderstandings, or a twisting of innocent conversations to personally derive a benefit from them. People aren't going to want to work with her. And then obviously since then we've all learned about the other ways that she kind of approaches her co-stars. She's rude about them. She takes the piss out of them because they were born in a prison cell and refers to them as monkeys. She grabs their crotch completely unscripted and without any consent. Anna Kendrick, she smacked her ass. I mean, that people don't like this stuff. Lively is claiming to not like this stuff, but yet she does it all the time in film after film after film. And then there is constantly some kind of drama going on with her and her co-stars, and people just don't want that at all. So, that is the reason why, she is being offered less and less jobs. And at the end of the day, you have to keep in mind that Lively, by her own admission, she did it in the rhythm section, and she's done it in It Ends With Us, and I'm sure she's done it in other movies, but she takes control. And whilst a lot of people may be, like, amenable to giving their leading actress, a bit more creative control, some of them may be amenable to yielding that, like Justin Baldoni, or they may just have their head up her ass, like Paul Feig. But a lot of directors and producers, when you put together a movie, they're there to be at the helm, and they don't want to give up. They don't go into it thinking, right, I'm going to let someone completely take over everything I'm doing, make all decisions. And as we discussed in my my regulatory kind of series on the PGA, the DGA, and the WGA, they can't just do that. They can't actually do that. It is breaching rules. So I feel like some of this does need to be included when we're talking about, Lively's reputation and her struggles to be hired. Don't forget, Lively was offered a presenter role on the 50th anniversary of SNL, Saturday Night Live, and she did not do it. She claims it is because she was so traumatized she was in bed. But she wasn't so traumatized that she had to cancel going to Capri to film Another Simple Favor, or going to various Taylor Swift concerts, or going to, Book Bonanza in Texas. So, and she went to the London premiere, she went to the New York premiere. She was fine to do all of these things, but then come an SNL presenting role, which would have earned her some money, she couldn't do it. She still went to SNL and sat in the audience because Ryan Reynolds told that horrific joke. But, apparently she was too bad to actually do any kind of performing, any kind of presenting, which is just absurd. Okay, so we've got Michael Sipple next. So this is he's a forensic accountant, so he's probably going to go to damages. So I'll do a separate video.